Well, good morning, good afternoon, whatever it is. What is time? Welcome to a bonus episode of the Missing Wolves postgame live stream podcast thing. In our ramp up to the regular season, we're going to continue to have just kind of weekly episodes. Last week, for people that missed it, Tim Miller from the Bulwark came on and crashed out about the Nuggets. I believe he said he was going to Jan 6 the Cronkies. Good episode, fun episode. Also talked a little bit of Lynx, Olivia Miles. But today we got Dane Moore from the Dane Moore podcast. How's it going, man? Long time no see. It's been like almost 3 months.
Has it been that? Yeah, I guess that's when the season ended. My favorite thing about podcasts is and I do this all the time too, is when it's like, yeah, man, haven't talked to you in a long time. But what I don't think people know about podcasting is you always like talk for a half hour before you hit record on the episode, as you and I just did. So I'm as good as I just told you.
And Dane said he's doing wonderful. He's in his studio. I mean, Dane is just crushing it right now. Dane, I did this to John a couple weeks ago, and he was on talking Lynx, and this is my third year on the Wolves beat. One of the weird things of being on this beat for so long now is now I feel more confident to not just bother players with weird questions about themselves, but now bother writers with weird questions about themselves. So I hear you often in your podcasts say that, you know, you quit your job, you went all in doing Wolves coverage, and you've, I mean, honestly built an empire at this point. I mean, every time I look at my podcast in the Spotify and Apple charts, it's like Dane is in the top 5. What did you do before you got into the media side of
it? Yeah, so I was working at a summer camp sort of deal over the course of this. I was like my early 20s, and I didn't really know, I didn't know what I wanted to do. I thought I was going to law school. That was kind of my main thing. So I kind of took as you know, many people who don't know what they want to do after college say. I was definitely one of those. So yeah, for like the first couple of years I got out of school, it was just like kind of having little part-time jobs. And I had this in the summertime I'd go work up at this camp that I'd worked at in college in Lutzen, Minnesota. And then I was playing poker a lot. And that was I was in my early 20s, and I thought I was going to kind of like do a little bit of this and a little bit of that until I ultimately went to law school and started for the LSAT, took the LSAT and all that. And it was enough time that I was like, wait a minute, this is not what I want. I do not want to go to law school. And so the camp I was working with was like attached to a church here in Minneapolis, and I was running some after school programs and stuff like that. And I was like, okay, well, I don't want to do these knick-knack jobs anymore. My like dream of being like full-time professional poker player was kind of like, okay, that was a little naive. And I just didn't know what I wanted to do. And that's kind of, I wrote at the school paper in college, and I was really just like definitely not looking for a job in the space, but I was just looking for more things that I liked to do, you know, to kind of maybe lead me into whatever was going to be my career. So I just started like blogging about the Timberwolves, and with, again, no thought that it would be a career. I mean, you and I are similar in this way of like, it's just something you kind of wanted to do, and then you get into it and you see if you could sort of make it a career. But yeah, I worked at a church that was associated to a summer camp, and I was playing a lot of poker. I know that all sounds very weird, but before I was covering the Timberwolves, that's what I was doing professionally, at least.
That is like such a sign of the times, because like I'm guessing that was like 2010s range when like World Series of Poker was on ESPN every day.
It was after that. So that's when I got into poker at first, like many people did. Yeah. And I just started playing online a lot. And at that time, and then I don't know, there's a poker corner here, but then like online poker like shut down. So if you wanted to continue playing poker, you had to like find different games or literally at casinos. I was doing tournaments and stuff like that. Travel. It just like online poker was the best. Brick and mortar poker was not, was just a lot of time. And I was like, all right, maybe I'm not going to become Chris Moneymaker. But yeah, I definitely had, what do they say? Vegas and the Mirage on the mind. Yeah, that was early. Yeah. So that would have been like, early 2010s, mid 2010s is when I was, and then I was just a little lost and I found the Timberwolves, and now I've been doing this for about 10 years.
I mean, LaMelo Ball and Dane Moore, both just a little lost. They find the Timberwolves. Hopefully
we do not both have personal drivers, but
that'd be nice though. If you ever get to a personal driver stage, like
just punch me.
We might have to check in with you of like what's going on with Dane's life.
It's a good question. I haven't talked about it too much on my show because it was just kind of like a confusing, whatever. I was just like in my early 20s and I don't know what I wanted to do. And then I found this and I was like, this is what I want to do. So been doing it.
I mean, honestly, like I went to business school. I mega flunked out within a year, spent 2 years working like 60 hours a week at a gas station in a liquor store. And then like grandma had a fall and I was like, I'm going to be a nurse. And then 7 years of nursing, very stressful. Went to some therapy and my therapist was like, you should actually try like covering basketball. It'd probably be cathartic for you. And 6 years after that, I'm talking to Dane Moore and going into a third credentialed season, and the Lynx might win a championship and life comes at you fast. But like, honestly, I think a big part of it is just no one knows what they're going to do in their 20s.
Yep. I think that's a very big part of it. Or we tell ourselves we know what we're doing. And I don't know. I mean, I don't know about you, but I think a lot of people in my life are not even working in the same industry that they were when and I'm in my 30s now, late 30s now. Geez. 20s, they call the 20s the defining decade. And I think that's true because we just are lost the whole time of that decade, I think.
Well, and it's like, it's one of those things where I don't know, your prefrontal cortex doesn't get actually like developed until your early 20s. There's an alternate reality where Dane Moore is like a lawyer and just hates his life. So I'm glad I'm in the one where Dane isn't a lawyer.
Yeah, I would have I think I definitely would have hated my life. So me too.
All right. Well, Dane, so first season on the beat for the Wolves, what year was that for you?
Full-time, the 2018-19 season. 2017-18 was the first year I was like credentialed and coming around, but I was just doing just part-time stuff. Again, like even at that point, it was just a side hustle sort of deal. Yeah. And and then a couple other like opportunities I freelanced a bunch of places. I was editing, like, because I did quit my job, in 2017 to look into to work in media. I was like an editor of like some fishing magazine. I was just doing like whatever I could do. I edited at SB Nation for a while.
Did you write a poker article?
I did. Yeah.
Okay.
One time. Yeah, I did. Actually, I wrote it.
I was literally before this pod, I was like, I'm going to make sure Dane hasn't actually talked about this at length. And I was just typing like, the keywords that would bring up a podcast or a YouTube. And there's like a long form article on poker by Dane Moore. I was like, well, all right, we're going to get into this today.
I'd probably be a little embarrassed to read it. That was after my first time I went to Summer League. It was about I'm going to Summer League. Yeah. Because I was there, you've done this now too. Sorry if I'm derailing this podcast to talk about poker.
This is fine. This is great. This is my entire shtick, Dane.
Yeah. Okay, cool. But yeah, I was like, I went to Vegas for my first Summer League and I was like trying to get into the industry. So I went for like 12 days and was trying to meet people, whatever. And I remember like one night when I was there during the 12 days, I was like, all right, I'm going to go play poker. And it was fun. I was playing a lot lower stakes than I like had previously in my life. And it was just like a real, again, I was in my 20s, but it was like really one of those like, this is like what I thought I would be doing at 27 is I was like playing poker at the Bellagio. And I was like, that was like, well, 16-year-old me's dream for sure. And I was doing it, but it was just a really interesting couple weeks there because I was like, all right, the poker thing is done. And it felt like the beginning of what has become my career, for the last decade now almost of doing it. But there's a whole article on it somewhere. It's like poker. I don't even know what it's titled, but I think I'd be embarrassed if a lot of people read it, but whatever. It's my poker story.
I'll be honest. I didn't read it. I clicked on it, saw young Dane Moore in the picture, and then was like, yep. So this is where this podcast is starting today.
Yeah. I've always been a narcissist, So.
Well, hard transition to Wolvestock. I do think actually this is kind of in line with the first thing I wanted to ask you is just Anthony Edwards entering that age 26.
Talk about prefrontal cortexes, season. Man, right?
It should 25. Technically be developed. Like last season, all of training camp was doing the little things, right? Like running all the way to the corners, playing faster. I remember Ant had an interview with us at one point where he was talking about how he only gets like 4 or 5 hours of sleep at night. And like coaches are telling him to get 7 hours. And he was kind of like popping at that. Like, do you think this could be the year that Ant just does the normal things? I think in our outline, I said the Rudy stuff, which Rudy is like the perfect example of this, where like, I think he only eats quinoa and like protein, but do you think that it could actually happen for Ant this year, or what are your thoughts on it?
Well, I mean, I think if I'm understanding what you're describing, I think that process has started. I mean, I think Ant is and has been, frankly, for numerous years, been eating a lot healthier, been taking care of his body much more. I mean, I think I saw the biggest like shift in his body when he did that before the Olympics, when he did the World Cup with that group of younger guys. It was like the
Austin Reeves team.
Yeah. You know, that group. And I remember seeing him in person after that. And I was like, oh, Anthony Edwards has a basketball body build now. He just looked like he looked longer, but it had just been that he had gotten leaner, and he did come to the NBA with more of like a young football body and with a higher body fat percentage. And he really, I think that piece of it has been in the works for a while. I think if anybody is still worried about him eating like too many hot Cheetos or whatever and ordering McDonald's, like I do think that was, as it was for many of us, a pandemic thing where he was, ordering McDonald's all the time and all that. But I think that's an example of him already having grown up a lot. I think the next step, which is also already underway, is reading the game in advance, playing chess, thinking a couple moves ahead. And while I don't think like the point Ant experiment was all that successful last year for the team, I think they missed traditional point guard play. I do think when Finch and Tim Conley talk about that year and the experience he had being valuable and now pivoting back to a traditional point guard, I think they're right in saying that this year of kind of being the lead ball handler, being the heliocentric guy was beneficial to him reading the game. That's the best place it's like being the quarterback in football when you can sort of see the landscape. And I think Ant learned how to like find the open spots. And I think the next step for him is learning how to like manipulate in advance, use his gravity intentionally to free open a popping big, or understanding if he takes 2 dribbles left here that the defender is going to rotate over from the weak side, and then that can be manipulated. Bing, bing. You know, I think that piece of him has been growing, and I think it needs to grow a lot more to, you know, be an MVP, be a finals MVP, you know, to reach that top and highest frontier. He didn't, it's not physical issues that, you know, it's, to me, it's continuing to learn to be a master of the game, you know? And that could be a difficult thing to do when you're as supremely talented and gifted as Ant is, when you can kind of just force your way through things. Like, if he can sort of find that balance between, you know, kind of being the juggernaut attacking the basket and also, you know, being the intellectual out there, I think that's where this, you know, this thing goes to the moon.
Would you say that's like his biggest hurdle that you're looking from him this season then? Because
what else?
The reason I started off with the first kind of question that way is there are the off-ball stuff where you can tell he kind of loses focus at times, or, you know, he's not running the floor as fast or kind of organized. But like, to me, I kind of agree with you. I feel like learning how to read a moving floor is something that's going to be really important for him, because I think something that like Oklahoma City and San Antonio both do really well is like, if you're a stationary offense, they just send doubles from different angles. They send different attacks at you. They throw different coverages. They line up in a zone and switch to a man after they cross the court. Like, and to break that stuff, you need back cutters. You need like movement on the offense. And I've felt the last couple of years, whether it was Julius or Ant, that they just needed people standing in the right spots. So when something weird happened, they would be able to kind of like, all right, that's Dante's guy running at me. Dante should be open somewhere. Throw to Dante. So for me, it's a lot of like, how can you figure out where someone is by not knowing what spot they're going to be in? Like, how do you read those back cuts when the defense shifts? And like, it's interesting watching the Lynx, right? Because that's like my primary beat right now. And Courtney Williams made the All-Star as a point guard last season. She couldn't really read a moving offense. She couldn't really hit back cuts. Things had to be very structured for her. And then Olivia Miles comes in this year. Courtney goes to the 2 guard, very similar to kind of what Ant's going to be doing. And Liv is like, it's a computer. It just, she can read any cut, any coverage, direct the floor so that there is more of that motion. And it just opens everything up. So for me, it's like, how do you get Ant from kind of the stagnant offense, read and react, look for spots that people should be in, to recognizing like, okay, the defense is coming from this way. This means that this guy should cut. I'm going to throw it to this spot where he should be, and not necessarily just like where that guy should be standing still. Does that make sense, or am I just rambling?
No, I think it makes sense. I'm not sure how necessary it is anymore, you know, because a lot of what we're talking about drawing up is like envisioning Ant as the point guard of a possession. And we're talking about, I was saying, the quarterback thing and like reading the field. And Ant's going to bring it up plenty, and LaMelo's going to play out of the corner a lot more than people think. He played out of the corner a lot in Charlotte, but like, this is going to reconfigure Ant's role and make some of this, whatever we're calling it, reading the floor, manipulating the floor stuff, a little less needed than maybe it was in his role last season. Still, growth would be beneficial here, but I think, you know, part of this LaMelo move is an acknowledgement by the front office that actually Ant's best position is to play the 2. I don't think Ant is or will ever be a supercomputer in the way Olivia Miles is. I more fall in line with the Stephon Marbury line of like, point guards are gifts from God. I think people like Olivia Miles, who are those supercomputers, breaking down the floor are that way because they played point guard their whole life. They've been literally, since they started playing basketball, and oftentimes smaller, have had to manipulate the floor to find success. And I just think there's a lot of power. It's like learning a foreign language when you're a child rather than trying to learn a foreign language when you're an adult. Your brain just attaches to that more. And as I understand it with Ant, and he grew up a guard, wing, two guard, not a traditional point guard. And I think that's okay. I think it's okay to have Ant play the two and get somebody else to be the supercomputer, Olivia Miles style. And I think we now know who that is. That's LaMelo Ball. So I think actually once the season comes around, we start talking about Ant and what is the next horizon for Ant. I think our answer is going to come from what is Ant next to LaMelo? How does he bring the most out of that backcourt pairing? And I do think that's actually a very different task than he was presented with in the backcourt last season playing next to Dante DiVincenzo. It just is. LaMelo is a point guard, and other than Mike, that's been the guy, who that's the only point guard Ant is really like play. I guess D'Lo too.
D'Lo counts.
Yeah.
D'Lo does fine.
You're right. I just think they finally were like, no, we're gonna more do the two guard thing rather than the heliocentric James Harden thing with Ant. And I've asked Finch about that so many times over the course of Ant's career, and to Finch's credit, he's always said that Ant's superpower is being a two and playing off ball and attacking shifted defenses. Like, I agree with that. That's also my read of like what is best for Ant. So maybe that is what is to come this season for Ant, is a new role, and probably what will be his best role and his role for the rest of his career.
It's so interesting this year because you're right. Like, that frame of thinking is like Ant as the heliocentric offensive player. Like, what does he need to do to get to that Luka or James Harden or whatever, like, success rate? Mm-hmm. It just also feels like this year, I remember end of the 2025 season where Finch is like, Ant's to-do list after the season is finishing move, more post work, and more ball movements or whatever, the three kind of checklist things. And this year coming out of it, Finch was more just, he needs to learn how to take a break and recover and come back and be healthy, which is fair. Like, I think Ant was a lot more banged up last year than, I think it's been well reported on now, but like, the dude, I don't think was moving very well in his personal life, just because of the injuries. I'm sure it sucked to walk even. This year, it just does feel like we have at least I have no clue like what Ant is going to add to his game or what he needs to, which I guess, like, do you have any insight on that, or do you have any thoughts?
It's what LaMelo is going to add to his game. Like, I think that's what it is. So the question to me is, what is Ant going to be able to capitalize on that LaMelo provides for him? And then, all the other all the other things that come with like growing up and becoming more of a leader and all that stuff. Like, I think consistency night to night, understanding like the value of a win and the importance of a win. I mean, they've had success and won in the playoffs the last 2 years in the first round, but they were the 6th seed both times. Mm-hmm. I think with more of a commitment, to the importance of the regular season and really building during the regular season, more so than kind of like waiting around, which is a natural instinct that I understand, waiting around for the playoffs. Like, I think Ant could be really ready to like attack the regular season, and as a leader of the group, establish some real like patterns for that you build up over the course of the regular season, and then you capitalize on come the postseason. Like, if and when this Wolves team ever really, makes it to the finals, personally, I don't think it's going to look like the other times these last couple seasons where I was like, the regular season was all right. And then I think it'll be more like 23-24, where that season was, they built over the course of that year. And And then once they hit the playoffs, they were ascending, and boom, you sweep the Suns. Boom, you beat Denver in 7. You go to the conference finals. Like, I think the slope of the season needs to like be adjusted. And I think a lot of that is about, the leadership of the group and understanding the importance of it, while also not burning yourself out. Because I do think that, that happened to Ant too, of just like, physically, it was very taxing for him to be the point guard last season. And I don't know if that left enough room for him to be able to sort of, I guess, I don't know, be that level of focus that they would have needed to have been the 3 seed last year or something like that.
Do you feel like the team is obviously like Finch, I think gets it, like Rudy, I think gets it. I'm sure Tim Conley gets it, but like, do you feel like they understood after last season that it is a lot more about like starting the season, building habits, and preparing yourself for like a deep playoff run after they got knocked out?
You're saying like Finch and Con? I mean, I think
like
that's
outside of
being
Finch,
older,
Conley, and Rudy.
Yeah,
I think those are like the 3 people that I actually think do really preach that we need to build these habits and get on the right path.
Definitely Rudy.
Yeah.
Rudy definitely talks about that a lot. Like, I don't know. I think players, in my experience, all come into the season thinking and feeling that way, or most of them, right? Mm-hmm. And then the nature of the job and the flying all over the country and the getting into towns at 3, 4, or 5 a.m. to go play a game that, it's just like, that stuff just can outweigh focus. It sucks. Yeah. And so I don't think it's like this, the group last season didn't understand that. I think that group understood at the beginning. They're all like, yeah, continuity. And then when the rubber met the road, it was like, okay, the regular season's starting to feel monotonous. I think for that team up and down last season, the regular season felt monotonous. And I don't think this team is going to get to an NBA finals until like the regular season feels like required work. I just think that's and that's not just a Timberwolves thing. We would say the same thing about a lot of teams around the league who are like bumping up against that really being a contender. I think that's what gets you over the hump. And theoretically, that's what could get this Wolves team over the hump.
It was wild last year. I mean, what Ant I think mentioned it in like late October or early November that they were ready for the All-Star break or something like that. Like it did feel like they were ready for the playoffs about a month in.
He said that to me. I asked him about it. Yeah, it was I think it was the beginning of December, and we were in New Orleans, and I one of the answers, he's like, yeah, I think we're just waiting around for the playoffs. It's like, it's 55 more games until the playoffs or whatever it was, like, I don't think he was saying he is, just like the group. And I think you would echo that. Yeah. Like it did feel like that. It felt like that being around the team. And I think what that means is some nights it was all the way up there and like the engagement was there. And then, and some nights it wasn't. And then those nights when the engagement wasn't there, the mentality was like, well, like playoffs are a long time away. Like we just got to get there. We just got to get there. Like that's hard to do. I'm not trying to diminish how difficult that is and the level of focus and physicality that it requires. I just think a championship requires that, and we know that that's this team's goal, right? Ant's goal. And at some point here in his prime. So I'm fascinated to see what, I don't say any of this to mean like he wasn't working last year or anything. It's like, it's about like working more efficiently or something. And I do think Ant will come in with a real hunger and excitement. And I think a lot of that will be inspired by playing with Melo. Like, I think that sometimes, like to compete, you got to get your juices going. Right. And I think like, if nothing else, I think LaMelo's going to get Ant's juices going to to compete.
And that's trying to think of how to word it too, because I can see how this would be perceived of like we're bashing Ant and like work ethic and stuff like that, but like Ant's one of the like hardest working human beings I've ever been in the presence of. Like I have never sweat as much in my life as Ant has sweat in some of these like Chris Hine workouts.
Sure.
The guy puts in the effort. I just think last year, the amount of times you'd hear from like Julius or Nas saying like the dog days of the season, and you'd look and it's like December 12th. And then like, yeah, it's the dog day of the season, but like, we're not even halfway there yet. Or the amount of times you'd hear like Ant come out and be like, we got to listen to the game plan. Our energy wasn't there. I think I asked him at one point of like, if it's an energy or effort problem. And he was like, yeah, it's Timberwolves basketball or something. Like, it's just, I think we'll know relatively quickly if it changes this year. Cause I feel like the vibe will just be different, which
I think
you're right. I think
LaMelo is for sure.
I think LaMelo is a huge part of that. Like everything I've heard from people in Charlotte is like behind the scenes, he was pretty darn good at just being a good teammate, motivating guys, working out. It's going to be fun.
I agree. And I mean, I don't know LaMelo, and I know Ant to the extent that you can, know somebody that you cover. But I firmly believe in my understanding of Anthony Edwards and my understanding of LaMelo Ball as people that is going to really jive. I really think personality wise, that's going to jive in a way that is like very functionally productive on the floor. I think for both of them, sometimes they need that, like, let's go. And if one of the two of them is doing that at all times, like, it's going to go, and I don't think Ant has had that since the team became his. And I kind of make it, the line of that was once Cat left, you were around back then. Like, Ant was the best player, but Cat was like the sitting president of the group, right? Mm-hmm. Like, he'd been there for so long, and Ant was cool with like Cat's team first over, he's been here forever. Ant kind of, I think in his early 20s liked that, like, being underneath Cat there, and then Cat's gone, and Ant is just thrust into like, this is not only, you've been the best player on the team, but this is clearly your team. And I remember asking him about it at that media day, which was like, in his defense, like 2 days after Cat had gotten traded. I was like, you are like, this is your team now. And he was like, I remember him being like, yeah, I haven't even really like thought about like that, and being one of, because now he's the most tenured player on the team, I think he's been adjusting to that the past few years. And I think he likes having a running mate. That's just my subjective read on being around there. Like, I think Ant wants that. I think he wants somebody to sort of shoulder it with him while he remains clearly the most important and best player on the team.
I would agree with that. That was the press conference. They left the Lynx box score up, and Ant was just reading the box score the entire press conference. That's my main memory.
Does this thing where he like squints at it, like looks at it. It's good. He always does that. I'm like, dude, you could. What are you doing?
Also, like, there's not that many lines to the box score. Like, you can't read it for a 20-minute press conference.
No. Well, especially if it's not for that game, I don't know, but it just becomes reading material at that point. That's exactly the Jimmy Butler thing.
I want to pivot to the defense before we get out of here, though, because I've kind of talked myself into this more as the offseason is going on, of just like, I think it could work with just Rudy and length essentially around him. Barring they don't sign Kuminga or they don't make like an actual power forward move, which mean, we're sitting here in late August now. Like, there's not a ton of names out there. I guess just what are your thoughts on? I mean, I'll start off by this. Like, do you feel like they're gonna have to change their defensive identity a little bit from, being more of a just switch everything, keep Rudy down low, Boston Celtics-esque defense than they have been?
Yeah, no, I think it changes. I mean, I think I think you really fundamentally changed the layout of your defense, especially if we view it as like Io or Shannon, or if like somebody else comes in and Jaden is like the 4.
Yeah.
And Jaden, if Jaden isn't going to be guarding the ball because he needs like opening night, right? Like they're going to be playing Bam Adebayo and Giannis, right? Like who's guarding Giannis there if your starters are Rudy, Jaden, Io, and LaMelo? Like in that setup, I would assume if that was the starting 5, which we don't know, like you probably got to put Jaden on Giannis, right? So it just sort of shifts where, Jaden's guarded the point guard. I know Giannis is kind of a weird point forward for them, but like Jaden is normally guarding. Yeah. You know what I mean? Like, it's just, I think Jaden's role shifts a little bit, not for better or worse. I don't know. Like we'll have to see, but that's different. That would be very different. And then I think a lot of it is going to be, I think when we watch them play defense, it won't like actually be a zone, but by honing in on Rudy, if you just like spotlight Rudy, I think it'll be a lot more of like, sort of like bumping off matchups and to hold Rudy's presence by the rim as much. And then I think you'll see a lot of scramble around the other 4 of them. This isn't a good example because they always played Cat up so high that season before Rudy got there, the high wall coverage that they would always do. But what that really forced that defense to do is Cat would sprint up and you'd have 2 on the ball at the top of the floor. And that if they kind of are able to break that initial hedge trap show at the top, like if they're able to break that, then you need to really scramble around that. And I think we can picture that, right? You can picture Jared Vanderbilt like flying to the corner to contest a shot, Nickeil Alexander-Walker like scrambling over to the right wing and closing out and containing the ball. Like that's what this defense to me has to look like to be a top 15, top 10 defense if we want to go that high, because I think you're going to need to keep Rudy's presence by the basket. And, if teams try to manipulate that, the only way you can really handle that is to fly around. And I don't love the lack of size on this team right now, but in this smaller version of the team, you have athletes who can fly around, Terrence Shannon Jr. wasn't on that team back in the day, but I can picture him flying around. I can picture Jalen Clark flying around. I can see that, but I don't know. I got to see it before I start getting really optimistic about the Wolves defense this season. Cause we really don't know, we don't know who's going to be playing with who, right? Like who is going to be the 4? Is it Jaden? How does this, how do you even start matching up? It's just going to be different than when you had Randall or Cat at the 4.
There's a guy on Instagram that his entire feed is just teaching his infant baby like basketball concepts. It's awesome. Like 5 minutes on pre-switching. And that's where I kind of started to turn. I literally was just watching his videos because they're entertaining, of him like snapping to get his baby's attention and be like, hey, we're talking hoops here. But he was breaking down film from like Golden State with Al Horford, and they were doing like a ton of, like you said, just flying around to corners. They were like back tapping Horford and like pre-switching as people went up for screens, blitzing out the screen, and doing like everything they could to keep Horford as the low man. And like, I just can kind of see a vision in that where it is like LaMelo and Ant are both athletes. Like LaMelo is long. Jaden, Io is like a 6'10" wingspan. Like there is a way that this defense, I think, could still be really good. It's just going to be so different where you're going to be seeing, just like you said, not only guys flying around, but like the effort level is going to be, it's going to have to be kind of through the roof for it to be effective, which I don't know.
Execution.
And the execution. Yeah. Where guys have to know where their rotations are. And I just think it's going to be, that's probably the thing I'm most excited for this season. Like, I know LaMelo Ball on offense is going to be fun, but how they navigate and look on defense is just fascinating to me. Because like on paper, just looking at the size on this roster, you're right. Like, it's concerning. Your second best rebounder in the starting lineup is maybe like Io. I mean,
I think Jaden can rebound better if he plays the 4. I've always,
you think so? Well, yeah, I guess he's always out on guards.
That's not where rebounds go very often. You know, like we've never seen it. Jaden, if you just look at Jaden's rebounding numbers compared to other 6'10" players, it looks like, and then you would be like, oh, he's skinny, so he's not physical. Like, everybody that has like convinced themselves of the reason why Jaden doesn't have good rebounding numbers. I'm telling you, the reason is because he guards Luka Doncic, and Luka Doncic either takes a step back 3 or passes it to somebody to finish the play. And you're not, he's by Luka, you know, like he's just not, I mean, his numbers still could have been better in all of that. But I think if you put Jaden in more of a position to rebound, I think you get substantially better rebounding numbers, because I mean, Io can have a 6'10" wingspan, but he's not tall.
No,
you know, he's not a 4, even if they're going to try to, you know, square peg round hole that thing. Like, Jaden and Trey Lyles is on the team and he's a power forward, but like, I don't know. I think, like, to me, Shannon is the wing that I look at, who I could go be like, yeah, situationally, I have no problem with shifting that up to the 4. I think he has more size than Io does, while also, like, I think maintaining that strength. I mean, Io's very strong. Like, I don't know. I think it's just like, it's funny how we're like convincing or talking ourselves into like Io being a good power forward option, which is like, okay, they traded for him a couple months ago, and they're like, okay, got the point guard, you know, like it's what's going on here, you know? I think Io can rebound from the guard position, but they're going to need to rebound as a group.
Do you think it's going to be more Jaden doing off-ball stuff this year, or do you think it depends on how bad the on-ball stuff is, and then if they need to move him on-ball?
Yeah, I mean, I think that's where Jalen Clark comes into this, who, you know, I'm expecting Jalen Clark to have a consistent role. I mean, maybe it's like 10, 12 minutes, 10, you know, but like, I think that gives you a player that if Jalen Clark and Jaden McDaniels are on the floor together, Jalen Clark can guard the point guard and Jaden can be off ball there. I think it would help if some other guys could do that as well. I don't think Jaden's frequency off ball, playing more like power forward, is about Jaden. I think it's about Jalen Clark, Anthony Edwards, those guys being able to take the primary point of attack defensive job. And they're going to probably have to figure that out in training camp. Like, I don't think they know exactly either. So if that ends up being weaker than they thought, then maybe Jaden does shift more to, or remain on ball. And then they go, okay, well, we do need to play Trey Lyles now, because we are going to keep 65% of Jaden's minutes at the point of attack, whatever. Like, I think they need to sort of feel a lot of that out.
Farah brings up a question in the chat here of just Josh Green in the starting 5. I don't even think we've mentioned Josh Green once in this podcast. What are your thoughts? He belongs in there. What are your thoughts on the Josh Green, just in general, and if he is a potential starter?
Yeah, I think it's so funny how, like, when transactions happen, how they determine the way we, like, you know what I'm saying? Like, download the information.
We thought he was going to get traded within a minute.
Yeah, right. Like,
or at least I did.
Or I thought it was at least a possibility. But like, I think the Julius Randle trade is a good example here, What was the Julius Randle trade, Andrew Dukowitz? What happened?
Karl Anthony Towns for
No. I'm talking about this summer, the Julius Randle trade. What
this
got him to
summer,
Brooklyn?
the
What
entirety of it? Julius to Brooklyn. Brooklyn gave back Julius in a pick swap to Brooklyn. Then it turned into Naz Reid.
See, there you go. All right, you don't have to do the whole thing. So you're actually doing the whole thing. I think most people, when they think about the Julius Randle trade, will go, he got salary dumped to Brooklyn.
Oh no, it's all connected.
Because for a week, that's what it looked like, though. We were like, oh, it's a salary dump to Brooklyn, and I just think that's how people are going to remember that. When ultimately, Julius Randle was a big part of the matching salary that allowed the Wolves to get LaMelo Ball. They put to match LaMelo's very big salary. They had to put Julius and Naz together to be able to match and do that. So I say that to mean it, like, I think that frames the way that we think about these transactions. And with Josh Green too, part of this, what turned into a 4-team trade or whatever, Josh Green is coming back and it's in the middle of free agency when, players are getting traded and everything. And, I'm sitting there being like, you're talking to people, those conversations I was talking to people were all about LaMelo Ball. It wasn't like, I wasn't hearing much in the 48 hours after the Charlotte trade about, we actually think Josh Green is going to be our real weapon here and he's going to be the starting four. That conversation started happening a month later, once we were like, oh, wait, Josh Green isn't getting traded. They signed him. He can't be traded for 60 days. So I just think he got a little, and I regret this a little bit in my coverage of like, it just got kind of like brushed over because I was like, okay, well, I'm not going to watch like 2 hours of Josh Green film if I think he's going to be traded in a week. We just kind of like brushed over it. And then all of a sudden you're like, okay, maybe on opening night, Josh Green does start at the 4. Like, I don't know. I think that one's funny. And I think ultimately, sorry, I'm really long-winded here, but I think ultimately,
no, you're fine.
Ultimately, I think he's a lot better of a player than anybody's really been talking about with this. Like, he was in kind of a funky spot in Charlotte there, but we're not like far removed from Josh Green being a desirable 3-and-D wing. He signed a $15 million a year contract, 3-4 years ago on the idea. Like he signed for like what Io signed for almost. If you look at a percentage of the cap, like they were really, like this was a real piece. And I do think Josh Green is a real rotation player in the NBA. The only problem I have with it is like, where does I don't understand exactly where he plugs into this rotation on this team, because on my ideal team with Josh Green, he's a wing defender, and probably not needing to play the 4 in a pinch. But I think in this situation, it's a little bit more like he solves the pinch. And I just think it's led us to gloss over him a little bit. So I think it's smart that we should be talking about Josh Green. He's as important as like Shannon and Clark next season, right? Like, he might play more minutes than both of them. I don't know. Like, if he's not traded, he could also still be traded before the season. So that's the whole thing here.
Every fake Twitter trade is still Josh Green getting sent somewhere, which, he's fine. Like you said, he's a good 3-point shooter. He's a good catch and shoot 3-point shooter. Last year, he was, honestly, looking at like his defensive numbers last year, like he was better than Charlotte as a team. Like when your defensive rating is better than the team defensive rating, you're doing something right. Yeah, he guarded the primary ball handler like Jaden does for Charlotte for most of the year. Like, I think he's a good player to have around. It's just, to me, it's kind of like what you hinted at, is almost like the redundancy of, Jaden, Ant, Io, TJ, and Jalen. You kind of have 6 of those guys that all do, varying levels of that. Like, I do think Josh Green's a better like catch and shoot 3-point shooter than people maybe give him credit, but I just don't see where he, like, if he fits in and gets a lot of minutes, it's going to be at the expense of someone else that are eventually fans are going to be like, well, Chris Finch can't develop young guys.
No, that's silly. I wonder, I'm now thinking back, I'm thinking to the Miami thing now, and in the matchup on opening night, and I was like, okay, if Jaden is the one guarding Giannis. But maybe they don't. And like Finch has said, he did his interview with Chris Hine, that he doesn't initially view Jaden as being the power forward. So if we operate under that assumption, we go, okay, maybe we think Jaden is the best guy to guard Giannis, but we're not doing that because you want to leave Jaden at the point of attack. Who's the next best option? And I would say it's probably Trey Lyles, but the next one would be Josh Green. Like it wouldn't, if this is the exact roster come opening night and the first possession happens and Jaden is not guarding Giannis, I think my guess would be it's Josh Green guarding him. Or I would say he would do the best job of it. I think he's a physical, like gets into your space, tries to present a wall defender. Well, Jaden's a little bit more of like a poke check and catch you at the rim type of guy. Like I do think Josh Green is a little bit more of a physical defender, kind of what we hope Shannon will become, but hasn't really shown yet, like using some of that functional strength to defend up a couple positions. So again, I don't like the proposition of you're like, well, we play Miami the first game. We don't know who's going to guard him, who's going to guard Giannis. But within that context, I don't hate Josh Green being the answer of the limited options that are available.
Like the other side, the other part of the Josh Green thing is the Spurs, right? Obviously they're kind of fresh in my mind because that's the last time we watched this team play, but like Castle was guarding Julius Randle for large parts of those games. Dylan Harper was guarding Julius Randle. And I do think there is something of, if you don't have size, but you're just like, it sucks to play against you. You're one of those annoying guys that just, like you said, walls up really good, doesn't give up ground. Like, you can kind of mimic some of that stuff make up for the size with annoyance, which Josh Green seems like behind an annoying guy.
Yeah. San Antonio could do that because they would have Wemby at the back line. And even when it was Luke Cornett, like you have that 7-foot presence behind him. I think that allows San Antonio to get away. Like if Wemby wasn't out there, Julius Randle like puts Castle in the basket more often in that series. But Wemby's there, so it works for San Antonio. And the Wolves have Rudy Gobert. So like I think that, and Johan Berenchay like behind him. I do think that if you are going to try and guard these Julius Randle's a great example. These big physical fours. If you're going to guard them with the wing, you better have that rim protection on the back end, because as San Antonio proved, as Oklahoma City proved in the Western Conference Finals the year before, like you can slow down that type of Julius Randle player or shut his water all the way off with the right combination of ball pressure and rim protection on the back line. And like if my skepticism about the Wolves defense is wrong, and it's looking like a really good defensive team come Thanksgiving, like I think that's what we're talking about, where you're like, it all works because Rudy's there on the back line. And I could definitely see that happening.
I mean, Rudy needs to get that record-breaking defensive player of the year anyways. So what a way to do it, right?
I mean, shit, if they're a top 5 defense again, and Wemby doesn't play 65 games, which he doesn't have the incentive to anymore for his contract. Yeah. Like, I just think Rudy, to get that, the Wolves are going to need to be a top 5 defense. And I don't know I don't see them with the personnel that they have right now being able to get to that level. But if I'm underestimating all of this, and I think another thing that could boost the defense too is like you're replacing the non-Rudy minutes where like with Nas at the 5, the Nas Julius whatever combo. Like if Johan can defend too, those 15 minutes a night when Rudy's on the bench, like that the non-Rudy minutes defensively should be better, which all calculates into your overall defensive rating, right? Like I'm not saying the defense is like screwed. I think there's definitely ways to make this all like be be decent. I do struggle with like the ultimate ceiling, like a really, really high ceiling, like we've seen in previous seasons. But I think that's okay too, because the identity is going to change because there'll be a better offensive team now. So, yeah.
That's why I'm fascinated with the defense, though, is like,
yeah, sure.
I think realistically, you're probably looking at a ceiling of maybe it's the 10 or 12, but realistically, maybe it's like 15 and their offense is top 5 and it's just a different, like a completely different team. But there's also just that chance where it's like, if it just works, if Rudy is really like has another phase of his career and this is a top 5 defense, like, man, is it going to be a fun defense to watch.
I'm looking at it right now. Funny what this team is. That's kind of what I'm thinking too, of like top 5 offense, top 15 defense. The closest, can you guess what the closest team to that was last season?
Is it Charlotte?
It is. Yeah. Charlotte was fifth on offense, 11th on defense last season, So, and I mean, that was a lot bolstered by the end of the season where they were, they're beaten up on a lot of the lower tier teams in the East. I mean, whatever. Charlotte was good, but I don't know. Looking at that, and because right now I'm saying like top five offense, top 15 defense is kind of what I'm thinking of for the Wolves. And I'm thinking of that like a little bit of a distant possibility, if I'm being honest. Just like top 5 is tough. But I don't know. Charlotte did it last year. So also we got Cleveland was 8th on offense last year and 15th on defense. They went 52-30, like that's 8th and 15th, right? Yeah. 8th and 15th last year. So yeah, I don't know. I think it's fair for us to assume that they're a top 5 offense, or at least after the growing pains, like give it the first 6 weeks. What are they? I think they'll be a top 5 offense from December on, maybe, if it's a little rocky for the beginning of the season. And then, if Rudy's healthy, they should be an above average defensive team. So yeah, I don't know. Maybe it's not that crazy. 5 and 15, I can see it.
I mean, I've also taken up an hour of your time here, though, Dane. So I do want to get you out of here before you dinner at some point. Anything you have coming out? Anything you want to plug? I do want to give you a shout out. The pod you did with Kyle doing ownership stuff was awesome. Thank you. Enjoyed that. And Falling Knife, I'm assuming you're going to be having another live show there at some point before the season starts.
Yep. We do Wolves Fest at Falling Knife every year. This year, right before the season starts, and this year we're doing it on October 17th. Starting to put that together. It's fun. We do like a partnership beer with them called Second Apron that we're going to be doing again this year. But I mean, I don't know. Right now, in August, when there's not much Wolves stuff going on other than the ownership stuff, I've just been having a couple of other like media people from the local Minnesota space to kind of come on and talk about working in, like I had Matthew Collar on, who covers the Vikings last week, Nate Tice on last week, who covers the NFL for Yahoo, but he's Mike Tice's son, so he grew up here in Minnesota. And then I'm having like Aaron Gleeman and Alec Lewis on, who are other local reporters. And I guess kind of like we did for the first 5 or 10 minutes of this, talking about some of what my story was into media. Like both you and I have weird sort of pathways into getting into this. And what I've learned in my time is everybody who works in this kind of has a weird pathway into it. And on my show, we've just been kind of trying to highlight some of that. But yeah, the deal. Once the season gets around, we'll be doing shows all the time, which is somehow we are like 1 month away from media day. That's crazy. It comes quick.
Doesn't feel real. Well, thanks, Dane, for doing this. I appreciate you. For people that were in here listening, caught maybe the second half of it. So we'll go up on YouTube, Twitter, and Buzzer as soon as I end stream. It will be out as a podcast audio version tomorrow at 7 a.m. under the Missing Wolves tag, not the Missing Links. Tripping up over that already with 2 different podcast streams and 2 different podcast places to post. But we will be back tomorrow morning. Britt Robson from Racket MN is going to be coming on to talk a lot of links. The last time he was on, we didn't have Nafisa Collier to talk about. So probably a lot of Britt takes on Fee. But thanks everyone for listening, and we'll catch you tomorrow morning.